Continuing our charcoal drawing discussion, we're gonna work on another design in the charcoal style, but this time on velvet fabric. The challenge we face with velvet and suede fabrics is actually because of the nap and texture of the fabric. Moving the brush on these fabrics is a bit difficult, and we must be very careful with the paint's consistency. If the paint is a bit too thick, it stays on the surface of the nap of our fabric and doesn't soak into the fabric's fibers, and our painting might fade when washed. So the paint should be a bit thinner, but we should still be careful that it doesn't spread. To be on the safe side, you can always test it out on a small scrap of the material that you're planning to use before you actually start working on your main design and see which consistency gives you the very best result. I'll start working with very fine lines. And in places where I want it to be darker, well, I can move the brush more easily. But in places where I want it to be very fine and light, or just lines actually, to show my design, I have to work very carefully and more finely. The charcoal technique is one of those techniques that has many applications for formal wear, for bedding sets and pillowcases, and what I'm doing now. Actually, this velvet fabric is a pillowcase, which we'll also have as a set in our lessons. Actually, we have decoration related works in our future programs. This charcoal drawing tutorial, you can use it in various projects. Now, besides evening wear, you can use it on sportswear, shoes, bags, and many other things. It gives a very beautiful result. You can use it for both classic designs and sporty modern ones. In areas where we want absolute blackness, we simply press our brush, especially from the side, to fully work the black paint into the fabric. And in areas where we want it to be a bit lighter, we create a gradient effect by flicking the brush. See, these are the parts where I want absolute darkness, so I simply press my brush from the side. And for the parts want to be lighter, like this, and have a shaded look, I flick the brush like this. Notice that most of the paint on my brush has now been used for these sections. When I move the brush slowly over my work, I can create a very subtle color and shade from this darkness, but it's not that kind of flat, solid black. It has that shading effect, similar to when you're doing charcoal drawing on paper with Conte. When you move the brush slowly, move it slowly. The shadows you want to create actually become much more delicate. It becomes much softer. It's the same here. When the paint on the brush is picked up from these areas that were absolute black, by slowly moving the brush over these parts, we can create a very delicate shadow. See, these are the same lines we worked on before. The lines that are created by flicking the brush are also useful here. See, there are parts here that I want to be completely dark. Here, I'll reduce the darkness a bit, using a brush that creates a shadow just by dragging it over the work. It doesn't apply pure, heavy color to the piece. Look, I even have to repeatedly move the brush back and forth over the area I want to shade to get the exact level of darkness I'm looking for. Wherever I want it to be a little bit darker, repeating the brush strokes gives me that darkness. I want to create some very thin, delicate lines in this butterfly wing. I'm using the brush tip to make lines. These aren't flicking strokes anymore.